So, ladies, the place that we are discussing today comes from 1 Samuel chapter 30, specifically verse 6. And just a little background, at this point, David had been anointed as a future king of Israel. Saul, the current king, did not like that. So for a very long period of time, he had been chasing him, and David had been running from him and hiding and slipping through his fingers many times. So that brings us to a place where David had men who were following him, and they had left their camp and returned, and they came back to find that their camp was completely demolished. All of their women and children had been taken prisoner. And so they, as you can imagine, were feeling pretty hopeless, and there was just a lot of bitterness that was building in the men. And so, as we sometimes do when we feel bitter and feel like something unfair has happened, we want someone to point the finger at. And so these men were talking about stoning David. And the verse reads from chapter 30, verse 6, says, "There was talk among the men, bitter over the loss of their families, of stoning him. David strengthened himself with trust in his God." And I don't know about you, but for me, when I encounter a problem where I feel especially desperate, it's in my nature to try to fix it and come up with some type of solution, a way to solve it on my own. And it's really hard to stop and just to ask God what to do. I think especially in this situation, when you think men might be trying to kill you, that might be really hard to stop. But David did. He strengthened himself with trust in his God. Some versions say he encouraged himself in the Lord, or an older version says he refreshed himself in the Lord. So I guess I'm just curious to hear, when you find yourself in tough situations, how you stop yourself from trying to solve the problem yourself and first turn to God and see what he has to say about it.
I'm not really a fixer, so that analogy doesn't work so well for me, but I usually step back, and because God has been so faithful through many difficult situations, I feel secure knowing that he's in control. And as I thought about this and prepared for it, even yesterday, I started reading the Jesus Calling devotional again, the beginning of July. And I think it was 4 years ago when we first did this series. But it's always amazing to me how God can be in the details of our lives, because I started reading the reading for yesterday, and it says, "Rest in my presence when you need refreshment," is the first sentence. And I thought, okay, you're speaking to me, Lord. And it goes on, "I want you to lean on, trust, and be confident in me." And later, "In returning to me and resting in me, you shall be saved. In quietness and trust shall be your strength." The end of the academic year, I was facing a situation where my position was going to be eliminated. So I felt that God had prepared me in advance for that. And God just keeps showing up. You know, he's there. He places the people in strategic positions that are there to assist me and guide me, support me. It's always amazing to me how he orchestrates situations and intervenes when we need him.
I think that, when I'm faced with a difficult situation and I know those things because I've studied them, but I'm not feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I do is I have some really good friends that I know have the Holy Spirit in them. And so I can go to them, and then I can refresh in God, because I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling stressed. And so it's really important to identify, you mentioned how, God places the people, and I really believe that that's true. And knowing who those people are and being confident in that is important, I think, right when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
It's a really good
Having
thing you can
those
do.
people that point you back to Jesus, it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes hold you up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a CD that my husband made during some tough times that we had, and it's just all really, really uplifting songs, and so I put that in. And the first song on there is, All I Need Is You. And so it just reminds myself that I'm okay, and no matter what's going on around me, that's the ultimate message. Like, all I really need is God.
Brings you back to that eternal perspective, and
Yeah.
it feels like a big deal when we're going through stuff in the middle of it, but in the big picture, it will be okay.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you said that about the eternal perspective, because that is always something that I can go back to. It's another good way to refresh in the Lord. And when you're a mom, that sometimes that practical look at what does an eternal perspective mean, because it's hard for us to understand. We just take a look and we know, as a mom, you want certain things for your kids, but it's hard, and you got to let them go through the hard stuff. And so looking at my life like God might be looking at it from that eternal perspective, it makes it just a little bit easier, because you can look at like, oh yeah, okay, what's a big deal to my kids right now? They think it's the end of the world. It's not. And we know that as a parent, and I think that's how God looks at us sometimes, and I think that's helpful.
Yes.
Where we get stuck in this right now. And so you're right, stepping back. Stepping back.